into the unknown, into the unseen, the unexplainable, and the unbelievable. Join our strange journeys. Are you ready? They're actually posting it on there. Excuse me. Mystery. There's a site I came across called mysterybooms.com. And hasn't been updated in a while. We tried to get the author of this this website on our show, but never hadn't heard back from him. But then I found out later, sometimes it takes him a couple of weeks to get back with people. And I just found out about it last week. So he just hasn't had a chance to get back with us. Now, they state that the history of the booms for centuries, reports of mysterious sounds of the unexplained origin have been documented around the world. Among these reports of various mystery sounds, many reports of what are frequently described as mystery booms have been documented throughout history, particularly along the eastern coast of the United States. However, such noises, as well as a phenomenon that may be related to them, are not exclusive to this region. Dr. Gordon MacDonald, an American geophysicist and former member of the President's three-man council on environmental quality, uncovered a letter from 1906 which documented reports of booms that occurred seemingly in conjunction with foreshocks that preceded the Great San Francisco earthquake of that same year. Similar reports were documented in Charleston, South Carolina in 1883, as well as in Turkey. Also in 1883, reports of loud noises were documented along with the rain of a strange ash-like substance over Queenstown, South Africa in November of that year. So weird stuff's been coming in from all over. It says, let's see. Now, one of our ATs, Beth White, saw a show, watched a show just this past week. It actually aired back last October. It's the show Phantom Signals on the Science Channel. And their very first episode, guess what topic they chose? The mysterious booms. They talked about a loud boom in North Alabama on November 14th, 2017. People in 15 counties called 911 about the sound. It was described as a loud boom, cannon from the sky, or an earthquake. The National Weather Service, NASA, and the United States Geological Survey could not explain it. Again, here we go again. Nobody can explain what this boom is. Atmospheric scientist Karen Kosiba describes as a very loud noise that has no obvious source, but it can set off a car alarm, shatter windows, and scare the crap out of people under a clear sky. And they're heard all over the planet. There's really no single explanation there. People have different theories, and we're going to go over some of those in a minute. But the most prevalent one is sonic booms. How cool is that? that cone of, I guess, it's condensed air and the condensation coming from it. On a side note, Chuck Yeager was the first human to fly in a plane faster than the speed of sound and break the sound barrier in the X-1 on October the 14th, 1947. I found this cool newsreel.
In October 1947, at Muroc Desert Test Center in California, history is made by this aircraft, the XS-1, and its pilot, Captain Charles E. Yeager. This airplane and this pilot are about to be the first ever to fly faster than the speed of sound in level flight. A B-29 will take the XS-1 aloft and launch her at an altitude of about 35,000 feet. The XS-1 is not a military aircraft, but a flying research laboratory designed to test the effects of supersonic flight upon airplanes. It is powered by 4 rocket engines. Its weight empty is less than 5,000 pounds, but it carries 8,000 pounds of fuel. B-29s have done a lot of memorable things, but none of them ever before had a mission quite like this one. And no airplane ever did what the XS-1 is about to do. Tracking the sound barrier in level flight will be more than a spectacular feat. It will also give the Air Force valuable knowledge of the resources of new propulsive systems. Captain Yeager gets aboard the XS-1. It can't be a long flight he's going to have in the little aircraft. At full power, the flight can't last more than 2.5 minutes. But it's going to be a fast one. Crews are ready too, to do the timing, the only possible method for timing aircraft at extremely high altitudes. There she goes, a big moment in a history-making flight. Now she's approaching the barrier. The speed of sound at 35,000 feet is 660 miles per hour. The really big moment. Through the sound barrier. The first time ever in level flight. For the first time, except in dive, a man has flown an airplane faster than the speed of sound. It earned Captain Yeager many honors, and the historic plane, the XS-1, earned the resting place in the Smithsonian Institution.
Yeah, that was a Smithsonian newsreel. Got one of the watchers chimed in. It's crazy to me that these booms have been happening for so long. I assumed they were relatively newer phenomena. Fascinating. Well, thank you, Melanie, for commenting on that. You're right. It's fascinating. Yeah, when I came across the Lewis and Clark journal there where they were talking about it, it just kind of blew my mind. I was like, holy cow. I mean, the loudest sound ever heard, supposedly ever recorded, was Krakatoa. Oh, shoot, when was that? I got it here in my notes somewhere. Dun, 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 dun. I had it in my notes. Back in the 1800s, the sound was heard all the way across the planet. And let's see. That was the last one. But yeah, there's Chuck Yeager breaks the sound barrier October 14th, 1947. Amazing man. And see, this is a breakdown of a sonic boom. That yellow part being the boom itself, where the plane breaks through. That's one of the opinions. But that's what's interesting about these booms, is that when confronted, the Air Force, Navy, whoever may be flying jets, they say they've had no flyovers. So why would they lie? I mean, nobody's accusing them of anything.
Well, if they're testing new airplanes, then and they tell us about it, then the rest of the world hears it. So there goes the secrecy. I mean, think what would have happened if we'd have told the world about the stealth bomber before the,
Well, I understand that, and I don't have a problem with their secrecy, but normally they do that in unpopulated areas where a sonic boom wouldn't affect anybody, And I mean, these are in populated areas. And from what I understand, they're supposed to let everybody know when they're going to be doing something that would cause a sonic boom, in case there's the rattling and all that. I could be wrong, but I thought they were supposed to tell us, and that any secret stuff would be out away from everybody. I don't know. Now, that reminded me sometime in the 80s, I was working at a little shipyard down in Pascagoula, where it was a small shipyard, and I was head of security. And I stepped out of our guard shack one day and was on the front step of this little guard shack. And when I heard a loud boom that shook everything and rattled the windows, and I mean, it shook the step I was on, and it kind of buckled my knees. It was so loud and forceful. And I just assumed it was a sonic boom. But of course, I never looked into it. But I've experienced what everybody else has experienced in that. And Beth, the news story I told you about on January 24th, 2020, last year, Beth actually remembered that, and she wrote down for us her what she could remember of her experience. She said, I had a personal experience with a boom on January 24th, 2020. I was at work in my office at a local college in Mobile, Alabama. I heard a rumble that got louder, and it sounded like something was about to come through the wall of my office. I half expected to see a tank or semi or airplane come through the wall. The college is near Mobile Regional Airport. For all I knew, it was the end of me. A woman I worked with was in the office with me, and we were both confused and wondered what in the world was going on. I checked my Facebook and saw that people in Mississippi, where I live, heard it as well. Apparently, it was only heard from Ocean Springs, Mississippi to West Mobile, Alabama. No thunderstorms around, so the NWS had no clue, National Weather Service. The USGS, U.S. Geological Survey, claims no earthquakes. South Alabama has had minor ones before. The military didn't have any exercises going on out in the Gulf of Mexico, or at least not that they would admit. So no explanation. She said, I have felt that before at my house in Hurley, Mississippi. It rumbled and shook my house. It started low, came to a crescendo, then went low and away. I wonder if I had felt my first earthquake. But the USGS had no activity in South Mississippi. I've heard sonic booms, and this did not remind me of them. I would like to be outside to hear the next one so I can hear an actual boom, see if there's any rumbling outside or just the boom. And that's the unusual thing about these sounds that people report. Sometimes there is a flash of light. Most times there's not, but it shakes everything around them like an earthquake. And again, going back to that video where the geologist was looking at the seismograph, and his words were, there was an event that shook the ground. He didn't say that the ground shook and caused an event. He says an event shook the ground.
I remember back in 89 or 90, we had an event that shook everything. It shook my house. My iron fell off, and it busted the glass top on my stove. I had heard at the time that it was an earthquake, but we don't have earthquakes in Mobile, And I had been inside a building, so I didn't hear the noise, but whatever it was shook my entire house.
Yeah. Well, earthquakes can be possible anywhere, but I've never known of this area having earthquakes. And when I live in Tennessee, I was told that there were a couple of earthquakes, but I never experienced anything. And there's a fault line. I think it's called the Missouri fault line, goes through Tennessee, but I don't remember experiencing anything. I remember being in a church service one day, and afterwards the guy that was in the back doing the sound says, "Man, did you feel that rumbling? We had a minor earthquake." After, I'm like, "No." So now, along with the mysterious booms, the Mental Floss website brings up 9 strange sounds that cannot be explained. One is called the upsweep. It's an unidentified sound that's existed at least since the Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory began recording what they call SOSUS, an underwater sound surveillance system with listening stations around the world that they started in 91. The sound consists of a long train of narrow band upsweeping sounds of several seconds duration each. The source location is difficult to identify, but it's in the Pacific around the halfway point between Australia and South America. And they say upsweep changes with the seasons, becoming loudest in spring and autumn, though it isn't clear why. But the leading theory is that it's related to volcanic activity. Then there's the whistle. It was recorded on July the 7th, 1997, and only one hydrophone, that's an underwater microphone, only one hydrophone picked it up. The location is unknown, and limited information has made it difficult to speculate the source. And then there's the bloop. It's the big kahuna in unexplained sounds. I've seen segments on this in different documentaries and such. In 1997, an extremely powerful ultra-low frequency sound was detected at various listening stations thousands of miles apart and traced to somewhere west of the southern tip of South America. The sound only lasted about a minute and was heard repeatedly over the summer, but not since. Bloop is generally believed to be the sound of a massive ice quake, but scientists haven't totally ruled out the possibility that it could be originating from something organic. Now, this is where it gets eerie. If an animal was the source of bloop, it would have to be larger than a blue whale. The most fanciful of all theories stems from the fact that the bloop's location is somewhat close to author H.P. Lovecraft's fictional sunken city of R'lyeh, or however you say that, R'lyeh, where the creature known as Cthulhu lies, dead but dreaming. Cthulhu, if I'm pronouncing that right, I think everybody pronounces it different, can be described as part man, part dragon, and part octopus, which seems as likely as the source of any of the ocean's greatest auroral anomaly. But there's also another sound called Julia. I don't know why they call it Julia. They didn't explain. It was recorded on March the 1st, 1999, lasted roughly for 15 seconds, and was loud enough to be heard by the entire equatorial Pacific Ocean hydrophone array. An Antarctic iceberg run aground is the leading suspect for its source. Then there's the slowdown. It was first recorded on May 19, 1997. It's also credited to an iceberg running aground, though some people insist it might be a giant squid. That sound lasted about 7 minutes. It gradually decreased in frequency, hence the name slowdown. Like upsweep, the sound has been periodically since it was initially detected. And then there's the hum, which has been recorded on several occasions, mostly during the last 50 years or so. In these cases, there have been reports of a relentless and troubling low-frequency humming noise that can only be heard by a certain portion of the population. Yeah, some people's hearing can get some of those lower frequencies. Yeah, I've seen documentaries on this. Now, it's difficult to pinpoint when the instances of the hum began, but it's been well documented since the 1970s. And since then, cases have popped up all over the world, from Ontario to Canada to Taos, New Mexico to Bristol, England to Scotland and Auckland, New Zealand. And in most cases, the affected group only makes up around 2% of the population. But for those individuals, the hum is inescapable, but impossible to track. And those affected report that they've never having heard the noises before, and they say the hum is generally heard indoors and becomes louder at night. It's also most common in rural and suburban areas and among people between the age of 55 and 70. So I should be able to pick that up now if I've got that quirk in my hearing. And then there's skyquakes, which we're talking about today. Then there's the UVB-76, also known as the buzzer. It's been showing up on shortwave radios for decades. It broadcasts at 4625 kilohertz, and after repeating buzzing noises, a voice occasionally reads numbers and names in Russian. The source and purpose has never been determined. Though they did find, I think, a broadcast station in Russia, but it is inaccessible. I'd have to go back and watch the documentary I saw on it now. And then there's the 52 hertz whale. This animal, also known as the loneliest whale in the world, calls at a highly unusual 52 hertz, well above the normal frequency. Scientists have been listening to 52 hertz for decades, and recently filmmakers raised $400,000 on Kickstarter to seek the mammal out. It should be noted that the fundraiser reached its goal through the help of Leonardo DiCaprio, another mysterious beast. So now, I wanted to close out today. I wanted to go through several, reportings of the booms, the history, though we really didn't go in. We didn't do a deep dive into the history, just a couple of things from Indian lore, Lewis and Clark, James Fenimore Cooper. But I wanted you to realize that this has been going on for several hundred years, if not more. And many of that, there were reportings. I have to bite my tongue and say sightings because most of the time you don't see it. I was watching one news report on YouTube, and they said, we had a sighting of the booms last night. And one reporter was like, one witness to the sighting of the boom, but there was nothing to see. But anyway, so a lot of these reportings of these booms were before jet planes, before they had explosives. It was still being out there. All right. On Wikipedia, they have a whole list of possible causes of these loud booms. They've been explained as coronal mass ejection. Coronal mass ejection, CMEs, often generates shock waves similar to what happens when an aircraft flies at speeds higher than the speed of sound. The solar winds equivalent of a sonic boom can accelerate protons up to millions of miles per minute, millions of miles per minute, as much as 40% of the speed of the light. So when you've seen those solar flares, when the sun, a portion of the sun blows off, that's the coronal mass ejection. And they're saying that this could cause technically a sonic boom, but meteors entering the atmosphere can cause sonic booms. Though I guess that could show up on radar. I'm not sure. Gas escaping from vents in the Earth's surface. With lakes, biogas from decaying vegetation is trapped beneath the lake bottoms, suddenly bursting forth. This is plausible since Cayuga Lake and Seneca Lake are two large and deep lakes. Though when we talked about Lake Seneca earlier in the show, some of the information we came over was that Seneca Lake did not have any caverns. Military aircraft, okay, that can explain, these booms heard before the jet flight age, before supersonic flight. Doesn't really explain those, or if, there were no flyover. In some cases, they've been associated with earthquakes. Earthquakes may not hold as a general cause because their sounds are often accompanied by seismic activity other than the vibrations induced by sound. Like the guy we mentioned earlier said, an event caused the ground to shake. The ground shaking didn't cause a loud event. So usually if it was an earthquake, there will be seismic activity. And there have been reports of booms just before an earthquake hit, like we talked about earlier with the great San Francisco earthquake, where booms were reported seconds before it hit. In North Carolina, one speculation is that they are sounds of the pieces of the continental shelf falling off into the Atlantic abyss. However, the Atlantic abyss is too far away from the East Coast. And the Atlantic ridge is the result of a very slow-moving tectonics and could not produce such sound, given how often they occur. Underwater caves, resonance from solar or earth magnetic activity, volcanic eruptions, avalanches, distant thunder. This is one, distant thunder being focused anonymously. Not anonymously like we didn't know, but you got to say it backwards, anomalously, where they're not sure how it happens, but the sound waves, because of the weather patterns, the sound waves can bounce and go a different way. And I heard one expert, meteorologist, say that sonic booms from far away were bouncing off the clouds or something like that and being heard in a different location, which I guess that's possible. Sound waves do bounce, but this is one of those topics where anything could be explained away, but at the same time, you take away all the variables and what's left. Some people have said that UFOs are playing around causing sonic booms in our atmosphere. If they're real, then that's a possibility. But, just like in our strange sightings segment earlier, they didn't talk about them. Excuse me. Didn't talk about them causing sonic booms. They just saw them. I have heard of instances where witnesses saw an unusual craft in the air take off at such a speed that it did cause a sonic boom. So there's always that. But we're going to go ahead and close it out today. I've gone over about all the material that we had, and I would encourage you, if this interests you, to get on YouTube and just do a search for mysterious booms, and you'll find them all over the place. And if you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and like us, like the videos on there. If you're watching on Facebook, just share this video, like it, and tell people about it. And I hope this has been entertaining. And Lynn, any final thoughts?
I forgot to turn my microphone back on. I have heard sonic booms when space shuttle will be coming back in. It'd break through in Texas and land in Pensacola, and we'd see the light go over just before the boom hit, Right. But there have been quite a few of them in my lifetime that I didn't see anything come over. You just heard a noise. It's like, okay, right. What was that?
Yep. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about. But it's most people, that hear them are going to, look up in the sky and say, what was that? If they didn't see anything, they're going to go on about their business. But there's been, those people that call in and report it. Now, if it is close, like in Beth's sense, she said it felt like the walls were about to fall down.
Mhm.
And the news stations getting all the phone calls. Police stations have gotten phone calls.
I remember a lot of different reports on the news where they'd say, did you hear this? We've had lots of reports of it today,
Right.
and this happened here at the station,
Mm-hmm.
But they couldn't really explain, just like earlier, Devin Walsh said, we're trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah. And from all their investigative inquiries, they can't get anywhere, and Beth's talking about the show she watched. They contacted people. One of these news stations contacted NASA. They contacted the Air Force. They contacted the Navy. They contacted everybody. What is there to deny? If they are flying over, so what? Why not? Why? I don't understand why they would want to keep that secret. Why not just say, yeah, we had a jet fly over at such and such time. Well, that was the time we heard the boom. Okay, cool. That's what it was. But in most of these cases, they're saying, no, we didn't have any planes in the area. If it was a covert training mission, that's usually done away from from populated areas.
I think sometimes the military is so used to saying no, that's just their automatic go-to answer.
Well, yeah, there's that too, plausible deniability. No, I don't know anything. In which that's always a possibility. Now, I'm going to close with a thought from Gaia.com has an article called Mysterious Booms Heard Around the World, Leaving People Perplexed. It was written by Tasha Shane on July the 10th, 2019. And it goes, while it may be tempting to dismiss the myriad reports of mysterious booms as insignificant, or even flippantly attribute them to improbable causes, but to those who have been shaken out of their beds by these sky-splitting sounds, there's still a puzzle begging to be solved. Right now, all they have are questions. What's the source of so much chaos? Will it happen again? Is the government hiding something from us? Perhaps most importantly is the question of whether this is just the beginning of something much bigger that we should all be preparing for now. It's kind of heavy. All right, guys. Thank y'all for hanging out. I hope it hadn't been boring for you with me going over all this information, but I appreciate you being here. This is for you, the watchers. You're watching, and so we appreciate it. Again, thank you guys for being here. From Lynn and myself, we appreciate it. In 2 weeks, we've got special guest Elizabeth Parker back to talk about her stories, her writing, her books, stories that she's uncovered, and from her 2 books, Haunted Mobile and The Waterline, and Return to the Haunted Mobile. So she's going to be back telling us some ghost stories on the next show. So y'all be with us, okay? I appreciate y'all being here.
She's cool, so you don't want to miss it.
Yeah, you don't want to miss it. This is she'll be be the 3rd time she's been on the show. So it's going to be great. She's an amazing, fun guest. So we look forward to it. So see you in 2 weeks, guys. Bye-bye.